Can you go lay down?
I keep falling, never falling 6 feet deep. For real, G, I'ma fulfill my dream. The mind activation, react like I'm facing time. Like for real, G, I'ma fulfill my dream. I keep falling, never falling 6 feet deep. For real, G, I'ma fulfill my dream. The mind activation, react like I'm facing time. Like for real, G, I'ma fulfill my dream.
Yeah, fuck your handouts, we here to stand out. Told mama your youngest child got a plan, damn. God's will, I'm about to shine now. No chill, I rush in like blow. Hit you with that ill style, no denial. Since a youngin' marching to my own beat. Never frontin', kept the lawyer, overcoming the heat. Dedicated since the soil, learned to walk on my feet. Doctor said I'd have my limits, I accept no defeat.
Hey everybody, this is David with Rocky Mountain Sports Report here to let you know that Avicor Mobile Power Wash is an industry leader in commercial cleaning services. They specialize in washing commercial vehicles, including but not limited to tractors, trailers, bobcats, front loaders, rear loaders, pickups, and much more. Have an oil stain? Give Avicor a call. Oil spills? Call Avicor. Parking lot, sidewalks, and commercial containers. You know who to call. Avicor. If you need it clean and want the best prices in town, then give Avicor Mobile Power Wash a call at 303-585-1129. All right, good evening, everybody. This is David and Matt with War Room Wednesday, where we talk beyond the X's and O's. Scott will not be with us tonight. He's feeling a little under the weather, so send Scott your get well wishes, and just want to let everybody know this show tonight is brought to you by Avicor Power Wash, so mobile power wash. So if you need any pressure washing, they're the people to call. So, all right, Matt, we sort of had a game plan of what we were going to talk about, and it's almost like the night before the Bronco game. You know, crazy stuff starts happening, and we get all this stuff, you know, flying around on the news today about Bethany and the ownership the ownership situation. So, and I know we've touched on this before. I don't know if you've really looked into it too much, and if you want to make any kind of statement on it or not.
Oh, absolutely. So I actually had some stuff that I had sent the group earlier. I just want to bring it up real quick so I do not misquote anything. So, okay. So earlier, probably around, I would say 1 o'clock our time, Mountain Standard Time, Bolin Wallace, she released a statement, kind of like supporting the fact that it might be in the best interest of the Broncos to sell. Like, it just seems like no one wants to be on the same page. Well, roughly 30 minutes ago, Pat Bowen's wife kind of released a statement completely negating everything that she had said earlier, saying that it would go against Pat's wishes. So pretty much what this is just a mess. It seems like there's no cohesion anywhere. It seems like you have one daughter in Brittany who wants to take over, Beth, who's like, I wanted to, but I want out. And then Mr. Bowen's wife, who's sounds like she's not supporting the fact that they want to sell. It did say that, let's see, it says there's a trial that's going to be held in July of 2021. But for the trustees to consider selling the team before that would be unwise. So I wonder if that's like kind of like a threat in a sense towards the trust. Like, if you guys sell before our trial,
right?
You know, I wonder if that's like, you know, lawsuit stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
This is all legal stuff, which I know we don't like to get into too much.
No, we don't. And I know this case was actually supposed to go to court earlier in the year before COVID came, and the judge, he doesn't want to do it virtually, so he's put it off way until the summer of 2021. So it's a messy situation what's going on with the Denver Broncos. I don't know if at some point the NFL is just going to step in and if they're going to just force the sale or not. So we'll have to just keep watching it, see what happens. So
yeah,
and go from there. So
yeah, when that statement first came out, it seemed like maybe that was going to be like the first sign of maybe some clarity, that maybe they were starting to kind of cohese together and kind of get on the same page. Now with Ms. Bowen sending this statement out, pretty much saying that Beth's statements are completely false and they do not represent anything that she stands for or the trust stands for, and she feels that the trust doesn't have the authority to sell potentially until that trial. So I don't know, but if I think it, like you said, I think if the league forces the hand, if that fine's going to come out, those siblings are going to disperse real quick. They're going to be like, I don't want to get this, gigantic fine. I think it's like $10 million or something crazy like that. I don't
Yeah.
remember the fine amount of that article. It's been about a week, so.
It was $10 million per year for
Yeah.
the organization, and then every owner, I think it was $2 million. So I'm
There's
sure
7 of them. So would that be like a $24 million fine?
Altogether, yeah, $24 million. So, which when you're talking a multi-billion-dollar corporation, it's like us getting $1,000 ticket or something. So, but it still hurts. Who wants to lose $24 million? So
yeah, I mean,
I definitely don't. So.
And we don't really know the financial status. I mean, they're all probably pretty well off, but we don't know each individual Bowen child's financials. Some might be hurting a little bit more than other. Maybe someone can't afford a $2 million fine right now.
Right.
Who knows?
Yeah, you don't know. They may not have any assets until this team is sold it and they get their revenue from that. So who knows? So, but Dennis says I think that's what Ellis wants, and maybe Ellis, is behind this thing and wants this thing sold.
I mean, in my opinion, it's the best route. I know a lot of people don't like to hear that, but it is. I think it is the best route. I think we're always going to have some kind of legal battle. One of the Boland's kids is always going to be upset that this one's in charge and they didn't get a chance. And I mean, the main thing is the trust gets the final say on who they feel is appropriate. And I don't know how easy the remaining kids, the other 6, would feel releasing their shares. So I think let's just throw out the keeping up with the Kardashian drama and let's move on with the good owner.
Yeah. So, and that's the way I feel. It's probably in the best interest of the organization to get this thing sold and get somebody who's going to care about the way this organization is heading, because right now this is Annabelle Boland talks about this not being in Pat Boland's best interest. What Beth wants to do, but I mean, do you think it's in his best interest that this organization is being run the way it is? This was not the kind of person Pat was. Pat demanded excellence, out of that organization, and it's not happening. So
yeah, it's a complete opposite. So yeah, like you just said it perfectly. Mr. Bowen expected excellence, and the trust he put in place seems to be fine with complacency. I mean, we're going on soon to be potentially 5 consecutive losing seasons now.
Yeah. Dennis says, so to change topics, what's your thoughts on Will Parks signing?
Oh, that's fantastic. I was a huge Will Parks fan before he left this offseason. He's not the same caliber as like Justin Simmons. They play different positions.
Right.
Will Parks is really similar to Kareem Jackson. I mean, he's not at that all-pro talent that K-Jax is, but he's got a solid skill set. He knows he plays the box well. He's a great run defender. He's not afraid to make a tackle. I mean, he lacks in coverage where Kareem Jackson does. Kareem Jackson started off as a corner. I don't know if many Bronco fans knew that. So he actually started off as a cornerback for the Texans and worked his way.
Yeah, I mean, actually, when we picked him up, he was a cornerback still, and we decided to switch him over to safety. So, and he's done well in the transition. So, and everyone keep in mind, Will Parks will not be playing Sunday in Kansas City because he still has to go through the whole COVID protocol and everything. So he will not be available for the game on Sunday. So let's touch on some other, injury news and stuff like that. It looks like Callahan is out at a minimum of 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Injury to the same foot, but Vic says it's not the same injury. Which I don't know what that really means. So it might be some of his his code words and stuff. But
what he was saying, not to interrupt, sorry, Dave. What he was saying is that it's not an injury to the bone per se, and that's what hindered Callahan last year, or in the last couple of years, was that injury to I don't remember which exact bone it was in his foot, but so what I'm hearing when he says that it could be something like a plantar fascia tear, it could be something to do with the ligaments in his actual foot. Yeah,
and I think you said it, and it may be possible that we may have seen the last of Callahan this year. I don't know if we want to. We're not really playing for anything, so I don't know if we want to push him to get him back on the field and to hurt him more. So
Yeah, I wouldn't push it. I mean, especially with our current trajectory, I would say rest him. With these injury, I mean, we seen it last year. Um, it was best to sit him. If it's that same foot, and it could be something that could potentially hinder his career, let's let him rest. I mean, we're not playing garbage time yet, but we're not even really a fringe playoff team, so I say just rest him.
Right. No, I agree. All right. Let's get on to, we touched on this Sunday a little bit. We said we'd talk about it a little bit more. Um, and with the Garrett Bowles contract extension. So we've learned a little more details about it, what it is. It seems to be Bronco friendly, up front. So it looks like he gave the team a decent deal up front. So, but overall, it's 4 years, $68 million. Why don't you break down the rest of the details on it, Matt, if you wouldn't mind?
Yeah. So the main part I'll focus on tonight, because I haven't had a chance to break down the remaining here. So highlighting the 5 million, so that's huge for us. So prior to the numbers being released today, we were all under the impression here, kind of across the league and here at Rocky Mountain Sports, that it was going to be an average of about 19 million a year. With that being said, it would have taken our cap number down to about 11 next year, pre-EFRA and RFA tenders and draft class. So we would have essentially had nothing with that signing if it was actually at that $19 million cap hit. Well, with this dropping to a $5 million cap hit, we drop from 30 to roughly 20, or so just under 30 to just under 25. It's like 24.9 million left in cap. So it's a huge difference for this year, especially with the stuff that's going to be potentially happening with the COVID and how it could affect the cap even more. It leaves us a little bit more flexibility. Roughly the way I broke it down today in our group was roughly 12.5 million will go towards draft class, EFRAs, and so exclusive rights free agents and restricted free agents. And the draft class will be roughly 12.5 million, leaving us roughly 12.5 million in cap for our own free agents.
Right.
That's not enough to really sign majority of them, but it's a better start than where we would have been. We're going to have to come up with creative ways to open up the cap, to bring back people like Phil and Justin, and the list goes on and on.
Yeah.
We have a huge list of free agents.
There is a huge list, and we've touched on it before, and we'll touch on it as we get closer to the off season and into the off season, and some of the moves that the Broncos can make. There's some pretty significant cap money that they can free up with 3 moves. And we'll touch on those, when we get into the off season. We got a little bit more news. Shelby Harris back in practice, which is good. He's back on the field. He's been out for a week, so I'm expecting that he's probably going to be limited on his snap count. I mean, you're coming off of COVID. You've been out for 4 weeks, trying to he's a big boy, trying to get back in shape and get out there. So I don't know if they're going to have him on a snap count or not and sort of watch him, but it's going to be good to have him back in the middle, and help with that run defense and knocking down some of Mahomes' balls, hopefully. So.
Oh yeah, definitely want to ease him back in. 4 weeks is a long time to be out. He's probably still in shape, but like they say, there's a difference between being in shape and being in football shape.
Right.
So I would say that we'd probably see him on a snap count, pending any unforeseen injuries or something else popping up during the game. He's going to want to be out there full time. I know that. Shelby Harris is a beast, and he likes to be on the field, even when he's tired.
Yeah, he's definitely going to want to be out there. So, and who knows? Maybe he comes out and he can play, and he convinces the coaches he can go. The majority of the time, which will be good for our defense, especially our rush defense, who's given up almost 200 yards the last 2 weeks. So, and then Anthony brings up same thing. Yes, Anthony, there is news. We have signed Will Parks. He is coming back. I think it was the Eagles who released him, correct?
Yeah, Philly released him. He's been battling injuries off and on all year. So that's why I'm kind of I believe Philadelphia, I can't remember if they signed him to a 2-year contract or one. But anyways, it doesn't matter. They released him today. We did not actually sign him. We claimed him off of waivers. So that's a little bit different. But I'm wondering if they're going to rest him up this season just to see if they can bring him back on a smaller cap hit next year. Because
Yeah, maybe.
he
Who
signed
knows?
for almost next to nothing from Philly. So I wonder if he would do the same for us.
Right. So,
Yeah.
okay. You touched on free agents. One of them you touched on is Philip Lindsay. And this is a touchy situation here in Colorado. There's you got a handful of people that want Phil back, and you got another group of people that say, you know what, is he really worth it? Because Phil's going to demand and he's going to command a pretty high dollar contract. So and I threw his career stats up here just so everybody could see. 498 carries, averages almost 5 yards a carry, which is phenomenal. 17 touchdowns, 72 receptions. 6 yards a catch, so 1 touchdown. And that's the part of his game he struggles in. Not so much the receiving part. He does struggle a little bit in his route running and stuff, I think, and coming out of the backfield. But I think the biggest part of the passing game where he struggles is in pass blocking.
Yep.
And he's sort of a liability back there. And I just don't know. And this is my opinion. So I don't know if you can really throw, $8 million at Phil. And you're going to get that. And Dennis brings up a good stat too: 0 fumbles. Yeah. I think the league gave him a break the other day. Whoever the scorekeeper was wanted to keep that streak going because the ball hit his hands. His fumble should have been on him and not on Cush, but they gave it to Cush anyway. So I think they just wanted to keep Phil's streak going of 0 fumbles. So
well, they did him a solid.
Yeah, they definitely did. So what's your thoughts, Matt? I mean, is he worth bringing him back, and what kind of money do we look at bringing him back at?
Okay, so I'll highlight on a couple of things. I mean, you kind of mentioned it. He's been solid for us. He struggles in pass protection. He struggles in the receiving game. We've seen him battle quite a few injuries as well, which was kind of like the biggest criticism for him. His stature. Is he going to be able to withstand the pros?
Right.
Overall, most of his injuries have been minor, but he has been banged up quite a bit. That's going to all play a factor into how he's evaluated on the open market. If he hits open market, I believe he's actually an RFA, not a UFA. So that makes things a little bit different.
Right.
With our current cap situation, if we get outbid and someone's okay with paying the third or fourth round tender, we could see him easily walk. Who knows? But back to so I think he does deserve another contract, not at $8 million a year. I don't think Gordon deserved $8 million a year either.
I don't either. I think that was another bad signing by the front office.
Yeah.
So
the way that I look at it, my best comparison to him, let's just say off his stature and running style, is Austin Eckler, who's also another Colorado native, who played out at Western State. He plays for the Chargers now.
Right.
He just signed a 3-year, $24.5 million contract with roughly about a little over 15.5 guaranteed. But when we look at Austin Eckler, he's a smaller back, but he's significantly better in pass protection and the receiving game. Mm-hmm. Philip Lindsay's a better runner. That's we got going for Phil. The way I look at it is, if I was the Broncos, what I would feel comfortable offering him is a 3-year, $18.5 million. So that'd be roughly about 6.1, almost 6.2 a year at about 9 guaranteed, so half guaranteed. I would feel comfortable with that number if we can make it work with the cap. Well, I don't know if Phil feels respected by that number, because he'll probably compare himself to Austin Eckler and some of these other smaller backs that are getting a good payday. And because we just signed Melvin Gordon at 8 a year.
Right.
He's like, I think I'm better. But I mean, I would, if he wants a dime, I would say 18.5 is my absolute top for Philip Lindsay.
Right.
One thing we have to realize is that we're not going to continue. We're not going to see these running backs like Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook, things like that. Even when we beat these guys into the ground, like they do out in Tennessee and Minnesota, we see multiple injuries, and then these star players that they're paying all these money for. Like I think Dalvin Cook just got hurt again last weekend. So it's not worth it. So we're seeing a lot of these teams switch to the RBC kind of style,
Right.
and it's proven to be more successful. That's what Denver was trying to establish with Melvin Gordon and Philip Lindsay. You can't afford to play two backs $8 million in RBC.
No, you can't.
You can't. It's just not worth it. It's not a smart business move. It's just not. I wish we would have paid if this would have been last year and we talked about it. I would have given Philip Lindsay the $8 million right there. But
Right.
since we've already committed to Melvin Gordon for another season, it's not worth it. We're already struggling cap wise. We can't really maneuver his contract. He's not going to probably be willing to. We've seen how he kind of threw a fit in Los Angeles. Was he still in San Diego then? When he was still in San Diego, when they were trying to give him a new contract, he threw a fit and sat out. We can't afford that. So
no, we can't.
We kind of put ourselves in a corner.
Yeah, we have, and I think the way that the Philip Lindsay has been handled may end up. Cody's comments way too big. It's cutting off half my face, so I'm going to flip it off. But I think the way this was handled in the offseason is, I think that may have put a bad taste in Lindsay's mouth as well. So it may be hard to even negotiate to bring him back. I mean, this may be a mute conversation. I know he loves it here. He wants to be a featured back somewhere, though. My thing is he's on his third injury this year, and I know none of them have been major, but 3 injuries in a year, and if you start to increase his workload, how much more does he get hurt? I mean, Cody has a comment in here that when he's in, he can change the dynamic of a game, and he has that ability, to break a long run and to spark an offense. And we've seen him do it a couple games, but I just wonder as he ages and stuff, how much more of a pounding his body can take, and that's my biggest concern with Philip Lindsay. You can get past the passing offense issues, and him not being able, because you can always bring in someone else on third down, and then Philip's not an every down back, and so now he definitely doesn't deserve that kind of money that he wants. So
yeah, I mean, you provide a good point. He may feel like it was unjust and he deserved that money last year prior to the Gordon signing. I mean, but the one thing Phil also has to keep in mind is that the running back market is an extremely small market. You don't see running backs get out there and really get paid. I was completely shocked when we seen what happened with Melvin Gordon last year.
I was too. You don't see contracts like that anymore for running backs.
You don't, because you see these guys like Miles Sanders and some other, these guys that are getting drafted from Philadelphia, getting drafted in the second or third round, where they're able to pan out, and they're fine with this running back by committee thing, and you're never going to have to pay them a large contract. So Phil has to keep that in mind, is that if he goes to the open market, the market might not be better than what it is here. Right. It's just how it's reality.
Yeah, and I can't remember who it was. It was somebody else on our team, either last year or the year before. They wanted to go out and test the market because they thought they were going to get more money, and they didn't get what they wanted. So,
same thing. Shelby Harris is a good example of last year.
Yeah.
So the defensive tackle market, interior defensive lineman, is extremely competitive. We see, tons and tons of young guys coming out of the draft every year, getting picked in the 5th or 6th round, fine with being, at that, mediocre role, getting paid very little. He went out there, thought he was going to get big money. We all thought he was going to get big money, but it just doesn't work that way.
Right. No. And I understand these players going out there and trying to make the money. I mean, one play and their whole career can be over, so they're trying to get paid, and I don't blame him. It's just like you said, the running back market really isn't out there for that anymore.
Yeah.
Dennis here even says 3 years at 18 mil, and I don't even know if you can pay Lindsay that kind of money, because you already have 8 mil sunk in Gordon, so now you got 14 mil in your backfield, and then whatever Royce Freeman's going to be getting, you got almost 18 to $20 million backfield.
Yeah, I think at that point, Royce Freeman becomes expendable when we look at getting another back in the draft.
I would think you would have to. So,
yeah, I mean, it's a tricky market. If I'm being completely honest, the only markets for an offensive player are left tackle and quarterback. The significant drop off between those two is astounding. I mean, we see wide receivers getting paid, but I mean, if you're, but you have to be top 5. If you're not top 5, you're really not making tons making tons of money because you're a professional athlete.
Right.
But compared to the market, you're really you're not there. You're not in that. If you're unless you're top 5, you're not getting paid it. Yeah.
And and Cody does bring up a good point. Freeman does, have limited touches, and I mean he's the third back, so he is going to have limited touches, So, but yeah, it may be time to move on from him and just bring in a cheaper option through the draft.
Yeah, and I don't think Freeman's a bad player. Honestly, I think I think I would have been more comfortable rolling with Lindsey and Freeman than Gordon and Lindsey. I mean, I have nothing against Melvin Gordon as a human being, but I mean he's cost us several momentum shifts with his fumbles. 4 of them at key moments of the game when we're some of them were gaining steam, and it's just been inexcusable. I mean he's had a great performance. He's put up quite a bit of yards, got a lot of touchdowns, but that's all overshadowed by those 4 fumbles.
It definitely is. I mean, and they come at the worst possible time. It seems like as well. So momentum killers, like you said, and things like that. We were driving down to put the Dolphins away, and he fumbles the ball, down there, and then we have to hold on to get a good play by Justin Simmons. So, we'll see what happens with Lindsey. I know it's a feel good story. He's the local boy from Denver, went to CU, undrafted, could have went to Baltimore. Baltimore wanted him, and he said no. His mom convinced him to come home. So he came home, and he's done very well here. So, but
I would find a way to keep him if it's within reason.
Yeah, and it has to be within reason.
Yeah, it has to be.
You can't just give him a deal because it's a feel good story. So,
yeah.
Question from Dennis. Here it is.
This is the question around the world right now. I hear this question on the media all the time.
And me and you have been going back and forth on this all day long. And yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead and throw your pitch out there for Stafford, Matt.
So first things first. I personally, inside my heart here as a Bronco fan, think it's an awful move. But I'm going to argue for it because I think it's extremely possible. I believe the cap number right now he's sitting at for next year is $33.5 million. That's the big thing. He has a dead cap hit of about 19, I believe. So roughly, this is what Detroit has to come up with. Do they feel comfortable? We'll use Dennis's question, cut and sign. I don't think that's likely. I think it's more likely for him to be traded. They'll have to be on the hook for a little bit more money if they just cut him outright and they get nothing in return. Now, if they can't find a trade partner, then we could see that depending on where they fall in the draft. I do think they invest in their new quarterback next year. I do think Denver has, Elway's in his last year of his contract. This is what we have to keep in mind. He's going to want to go out with the bang. If this is truly his last year as a Broncos GM and he feels that this is the last year as a GM, there's obviously, we've seen Locke's flaws. I think, in my opinion, we've seen his ceiling. I don't think he's going to get much better than what we've seen. That's my opinion. Love it, hate it. That's on you guys. But, I don't think he's going to get much better, and I think I was going to invest in a veteran. It's going to be a mistake. We've seen it happen with Flacco. We've seen it happen with Keenum. We've only seen it be successful with Peyton, but Peyton's a game changer. With that being said, I could see Denver flipping as early as a third-round pick for Matthew Stafford. With that being said, we'll have to absorb roughly a $20 million cap hit for him. So his base salary is sitting at 33 for next year. However, he has a clause in his contract that if he's traded, his base salary of 9.9 becomes void. So he would account for 20 mil towards our cap. I think it's likely. The media here seems to be backing it too. I can see Denver making this move. I don't agree with it, but Elway wants to hit the playoffs before he goes. This is his last chance. I mean, the other options are Matt Ryan, who I think is way past his prime. I think he's done. He's like a great fantasy quarterback. I have him every year because he puts up 14 to 25 points a game, but he can't win games. Sam Darnold's out there. If I was Don Elway, I would build for the future. I would try to leave the next regiment off right and take Sam Darnold, but that's not going to be the case. I think we'll see them invest in Stafford. Predicting it now, and let's hope it doesn't happen, but that's my prediction.
Right, and I agree with you. I don't want it to happen. I told you I don't want another 12-year vet in Stafford. I don't want a 13-year vet in Ryan. we've gone down this road. And every time he's tried it, with the exception of Peyton Manning, it's failed, and it sort of set us back in where we're going. But I agree with you. He's probably going to want to do this because he knows it's his last year, and he's going to want to try to make one more run as his last year. So he's going to go out and do what he has. And you had mentioned something before when you and I were talking about it, and possibly even throwing Vaughn in.
Yeah. So the way that I look at it is there's 3 ways we could do, or 2 ways that makes sense to me. So if we do not feel comfortable taking the $20 million cap hit, we could potentially do a sign and trade. So to add on 2 more years to his contract, potentially making like the third or fourth one the fourth one void. But we'd be able to split out his remaining $59 million, with the exception of the base salary void, so that would drop to roughly, I think, like 47-ish.
Right.
So we would spread up the 47 over the 4. That's a possibility. It's still a large cap hit. I think when I did the math earlier, it was roughly 17 mil per year. And depending on how much we feel comfortable giving him up front, would play a big factor into that. The other option we have is Vaughn and his salary are relatively the same. Detroit is always looking. They were always looking to build on defense. Matt Patricia was a defensive-minded coach. We don't know what their next regime is going to look like. Could we see a potential swap? Vaughn's roughly the same age. They're making roughly the same money. If they're done with Stafford and we're done with Vaughn, it could make sense. I think it's. We also got to look at the possibility: is Vaughn really going to be here next year? Does he want to be here next year?
Right.
We don't. Do we want him here at the current rate he's at? And if he's not willing to restructure, do we try to get something for him, or do we just take the positive cap, which would be about 18 million? So it's who knows? I really don't know.
No, we don't.
I don't know, but both of them make sense, though. I can see both possibilities. I think we've talked about it about 2 weeks ago that we do not see Vaughn being here next year. Most of us, I think, agreed with that.
Right.
That's it pains me to say it, but we're gonna find a way.
Right, me as well. It pains me to say that Vaughn won't be here, but unless Vaughn is going to take a significant pay cut, he won't be here because we have other needs that we need to fill, and with his huge contract, we can't do that. So, yeah. And Dennis says, yeah, he'd want Stafford to help with Locke. And I am sort of in an agreement with you. I think we have seen the ceiling on Locke. I just don't know. He has too many flaws mechanically and stuff that I just don't know if they are correctable at this level.
Yeah, So I tried to be a huge Locke believer. I've said this a million times. As soon as we drafted him, I went out and got his jersey. I was ready to support him. I was pumped. But now that we're starting to see more and more film and more mistakes, things like that, I'm just starting to get the vibe that we have seen his ceiling. I don't think I think if we were going to see Locke progress, the only way he's going to progress is beyond the field. I don't think bringing in a veteran after he's already started, 10 games now, 11 games soon to be, that it wouldn't be beneficial to bench him. We already see him lack like the professional mentality. We've seen what happened with the COVID things. We've seen the lack of judgment there. We see him often disengaged on the sidelines. We don't see him trying to hype his team up unless he's doing well.
Let me cut you off right there, Matt. We got to pay the bills, and then we're going to come back. We're going to talk about the COVID situation, leadership issues, and things like that. But let's pay the bills really quick.
Hey, everybody. This is David with Rocky Mountain Sports Report here to let you know that AviCore Mobile Power Wash is an industry leader in commercial cleaning services. They specialize in washing commercial vehicles, including but not limited to tractors, trailers, bobcats, front loaders, rear loaders, pickups, and much more. Have an oil stain? Give AviCore a call. Oil spills? Call AviCore. Parking lot, sidewalks, and commercial containers. You know who to call. AviCore. If you need it clean and want the best prices in town, then give AviCore Mobile Power Wash a call at 303-585-1129.
All right, everybody.
So we were talking about the COVID situation, and everything that went down in the last week. So we're finding out more and more details every day, I think, about the timing of everything and how everything happened. And now the way I'm understanding it is that Jeff Driscoll tested positive on Thursday. So, however, prior to Thursday, there were some quarterback meetings where all four quarterbacks were in the room together, and they weren't wearing masks and they weren't properly social distancing. They took off the contact tracing, devices. So, and I know we've thrown this around in our group and stuff. I mean, what does that speak to as far as, Locke being a leader? And we've all seen Locke's mom's statement on social media now. I'm sure everybody's seen it and come out and, and pretty much blasted the media for getting on him and said it wasn't really that big of a deal. And he takes COVID seriously and everything else. So, what are your thoughts on that from a leadership aspect and some of the timing and things? Because I think there's been a lot of confusion over this. Some people said they came in Saturday, and there's just been so much confusion over all of this stuff on timing and everything else. And I think that's part of the problem is the NFL never really got a clear picture because there was lack of cooperation on it.
Yeah, it's just been it really has been somewhat of a confusing mess, and there's a lot of friends that are upset, and I get that. But at the same time, it's a simple thing. Like, I get it. You guys want it. Sure. We'll look at it through the perspective that if this was the argument I'm hearing lately is if this had been any other time last season or a year before that and COVID was not going on, we'd be praising Locke for his leadership and excellence. Absolutely. We probably would. But that's not the case here. The case is very simple. The rules are for him, for us, for anyone really in the entire United States right now, in most states, most counties, most cities, is to wear a mask at all times. I get it. They were in the meeting room. Supposedly they were within the 6 feet of each other. Sure, that's fine and dandy, but there's people that are at work every single day that are in the same type of, say, meeting room environments that are not allowed to take their mask off. They're not allowed to eat together. He went into that room. They all went into that room. It's not only Locke. All four of them went into that room knowing that they had to have their mask on. They needed to have their contact tracing bands on. That was an expectation that has been beat into their heads every single day since November 18th. You blatantly ignored the rules. That's what it's down to. It wasn't a mistake. This wasn't pulling your mask down towards your chin and leaving it down for roughly 2 to 5 minutes. This was you completely taking your mask off and violating protocols, and then, not cooperating. Or we don't know what exactly happened to how they weren't cooperating, but it's simple. If you would have just kept your mask on at the entire time, you have that meeting. If you had permission from the Broncos to be there, you have the meeting, go get lunch after. It's that simple.
Right.
You and I can't have, like, right now in my in my workplace, I'm not even allowed to be in the same building. We have literally 12 employees. We're only allowed to have one employee in the building at a time because of the restrictions of what county we're in.
Right.
So it's life. And I mean, it does play into the lack of leadership. He's looked at to be the role model, and he's young, he's going to make a mistake. Yeah, well, there's also kids that are under 12 years old that know that they need to have their contact tracing bands at school and their mask on at school the entire time, and that they have to go into groups of 4 and eat across 4 different tables for lunch. They know if these kids as young as 5 and 6 years old can handle it, there's no reason why a professional athlete who's looked at to be the leader couldn't handle it. That's just my perspective. And I mean,
and these 4 individuals, and I know it was a tough challenge anyway, but these 4 individuals cost the Denver Broncos any chance of winning that football game on Sunday.
Yeah.
And I know if I'm a teammate of theirs, I'm probably a little pissed off at them. I mean, they put their team in a very bad situation by what they did. And then they go out there and they throw some guy out there who hasn't played quarterback in 3 years, and we all saw what happened,
Yeah.
I don't know. And then you get Fangio, it just seems like there's a leadership problem over at that facility altogether. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, is this a black eye on the coaching staff? Is it a black eye on management from Joe Ellis all the way down?
It's difficult because we can't. Unfortunately, we're not there. We're not able to see exactly what was happening. I mean, first and foremost, it starts off with Drew Lock and the other quarterbacks. That's where the blame starts. And I know a lot of fans are upset that the league's coming down hard on the Broncos. Well, you can't blame the league for having rules, and I get it. We're upset about the game. We'll kind of work our way that way in a second.
Right.
But yeah, it does signify leadership issues. It's showing leadership issues in the locker room with your star, your franchise quarterback making lapse of judgment. If it was on a Monday or Tuesday that they were in there, the Broncos facilities are supposed to be closed anyway. So what facility manager opened the doors so they can come in?
Right.
They're supposed to be closed. I don't know. Do we get confirmation of when the meeting was? Was it Monday or Tuesday, or was it Wednesday?
I've heard Tuesday or Wednesday, so I'm not 100% certain on that. So if anybody out there is listening and was it a Wednesday meeting? Was it a Tuesday meeting? So we're not really sure, but even Drew Lock's mom's post on social media made it sound like it was a day they weren't supposed to be in there anyway, because she said, well, it's better than them. She said they had permission, and it's better than them going out and just meeting somewhere else, off site and breaking the rules. Yeah. So it makes it sound like, and maybe the Broncos did give them permission. So who knows?
I mean, that's already if that was the case and it was on a day we were closed, we've already breached the protocol.
Right.
That was set in place on November 18th. We've already messed up.
Right.
I mean, so do I think as a standpoint that there's a leadership and issue across the entire organization? Yeah, I feel like we're in disarray. We became complete. We've lost our walking in excellence mentality that you mentioned earlier. Mm-hmm. We've been complacent with stagnant. We became stagnant with these consecutive losing seasons. We've seen minor improvements to our roster. We have these paper pusher type coaches, Vance Joseph, who's just there to say do whatever he's told to do. It doesn't really, have a backbone. Doesn't imply his own systems. We're seeing the same thing with Vic Fangio. Right. I heard an interesting point on this on the radio today. They were comparing Vic's reign to Vance's reign, and both of the media. I don't agree with it, but both the media hosts actually said they feel that right now the Broncos are in a worse spot now than they were with Vance Joseph. With Vance Joseph, they said that they saw him go on a 6-game win streak and felt like they were starting to get hot, and there was some cohesion going on. Right now, we don't see that cohesion. We see these up and downs and these mental mistakes and these lapses and players being disengaged. Some people getting upset. The people are feeling like they're getting kind of screwed, like Philip Lindsay. And then we have players like Vaughn who's walking off on phone interviews. I mean, we have all these just kind of mumbo jumbo issues all around. You don't see this in an organization like Pittsburgh. You don't see this in an organization like who's another really good one. You don't see many issues like this out of like New Orleans. You don't, right. Or they keep them structured. Yeah, they had the whole Antonio Brown debacle, but Antonio Brown is
right.
He's crazy. I mean, he had some mental health stuff going on. It appears when he was going through all of that. But right. I mean, overall, you don't see these types of things happening in these more organized organizations where leadership is established at the very top. Pittsburgh's, when they lost their owner, Art Rooney, and everything started transferring over to the other kids, we didn't see any of these types of issues. It was cohesive, it was planned, it was well thought out, and it's stuck that way for several years now. And now they're 11-0. So right. I mean,
yeah, 11-0, rolling along,
Yeah, and we see
very stable organization, and here we are. We're just flailing around trying to find a quarterback, trying to find a coach, and we can't do it. And it's like you said, a losing culture has become the way of doing things around here. It seems like, and it seems like there's some people who it really doesn't bother them that we have that losing culture in that building. So,
relaying back to it before you go into your side, I do want to highlight. So I shared something on our group, guys. I know Dan Orlovsky's not the best guy to use as a reference. Career long backup didn't really get a shot, kind of sour all the time. Sure. But he provided a good point in this. He went on a rant on ESPN about 2 days ago, and he pretty much said, Drew Lock, Brett Ritten, Blake Bortles, and Jeff Driscoll, you embarrassed your team. You've made them pretty much a laughing stock. He said, shame on you, Drew Lock. You're blowing your opportunity. You're looked at to be the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar franchise, and you're pretty much pissing away your opportunity at it by being lacking the pro mentality. He said, shame on you to Brett Rippon. He compared it to himself. You get limited snaps in the league. It's a very rare day that a backup quarterback gets to start, and you're wasting your opportunity by missing a game you could have been starting in. He put out some very good points. He's a sourpuss, I get that, but he pretty much hit it right on the head that our quarterback room seems to lack the pro mentality, the lack of leadership, and that it's probably a problem that we're hoping was solved, but it's not.
Right. And I think the Broncos coaching staff and management mishandled this whole thing by one. Why do you have all four quarterbacks in a room together? One of them should have been stashed away, and now they have finally adopt that philosophy. I think they've learned. Matter of fact, they learned so much that they even brought in a quarantine kicker. So with this guy can both kick field goals and punt. So that way, if we run into a situation there, but Blake Bortles no longer, will be at the facility. He's pretty much going to call in through Zoom and stuff like that, and work out offsite away from the rest of the team. And it is huge, and that's the way it should have been all along. I mean, teams around the league are doing that, and that's how a lot of them are protecting themselves. And that's another, in my opinion, another sign of mismanagement by Vic Fangio.
Yeah,
he totally mismanaged his roster. That cost us a football game. And then we had to go and bring in a wide receiver from the practice squad to play quarterback, because of his mismanagement and lack of leadership. And I think that's sort of why this happened, is because there is no leadership over in that building from what you see. Vic Fangio takes no responsibility. We've seen it time and time again. Anytime something goes down, he always has somebody else to point the finger at, And he did it in this situation, and he pointed it at the quarterback. And, it was their fault. But you know what? You need to stand up and take some of the responsibility as well. You're the leader of that team as the head coach, and you should be, taking some sort of responsibility. So.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. So just to kind of highlight what you were saying on Blake Bortles. So actually yesterday in Vic's press conference, he actually stated that nothing was going to change. He was going to keep Blake on the field. So thankfully, we also signed Kyle Shermer as an extreme backup. So what is it completely baffles me. Right now we have 5 quarterbacks technically on the Broncos roster. Completely baffles me. I don't understand the need for it. But you're right. Blake Bortles should have never been on the field. If he was never going to be called upon and he was there strictly for this, he should have never been in that room. But thankfully, someone sat down and told Vic, hey, this is not how it's going to go. Someone had to sit down and talk to him. I mean, because now the tune has changed. They did say that but they also did not completely commit that he was going to be off the site either. He said he's going to be in a limited role on site. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know exactly what that means. A limited role. I mean, it makes no sense to have him there. It doesn't, and it made no sense. It makes no sense to sign Kyle Shermer either if he's going to be your quarantine quarterback. So there's definitely some confusion that they're going to have to iron out. Maybe we see Kyle Shermer get released in the next coming days, and we see Blake go into that role. I'm not sure.
I think the reason Kyle was signed, because of more of what you're hearing coming out and everything, is these people were exposed to somebody who's positive. They're not going to show up the next day positive. So they might show up later this week, and maybe that's why Kyle's here. In case
emergency,
because he knows his dad's offense. So that's a bonus there. But I think if we go through this, none of these quarterbacks come out testing positive within the next 5 days or so. He probably will get released after the Kansas City game. So is what I'm thinking. But he's there just in case of extra emergency. Because what happens if we go ahead and let Kyle go, and then next thing you know it, all of them test positive.
Yeah, that's fair.
And then we got Hinton as our quarterback again.
Yeah, no, I get you. I think
So,
that's a
and
solid explanation.
that's the only logical thought I can put to it. So, all right. Well, we talked about a lot. There's a lot going on off the field with these Denver Broncos. We got a very tough game coming up this weekend against Kansas City. It's a night game at Arrowhead. Callahan's out. Sunday morning, 10 o'clock. Come join myself, Alex, Matt. We'll break down the game. We'll talk about it, and give you our predictions and our thoughts on the game and what the keys are, what the Broncos need to do to beat Kansas City. But I tell you what, Locke better go out there and have the game of his life, to win some credibility back with his teammates, I think. So I think going out there and playing a dynamite game and pulling off a victory in Kansas City would probably do a lot of good for his reputation around here right now, because I don't know. I just think his immaturity is really coming to light. So
yeah,
because you see him on the sideline smirking and stuff after he throws, a interception or something, and you've pointed it out. He's isolated from the rest of the team. So, but we'll talk about that stuff more, But thanks everybody for who checked in. Remember, if you needed any pressure washing, Avicor, check them out. Check them out on Facebook. Give them a call, 303-585-1129. They got the best prices in town. They'll hook you up. So I will talk to you on Sunday, Matt, 10 o'clock, everybody. And
Sounds
everybody
good.
Have a good night.
All right. Good night, guys. See you next time.